It is the most heartbreaking story ever told. Esteban Gonzalez is today with us. Esteban, are you certain this is the most heartbreaking story ever?
I believe so. It's the story of my grandfather's death.
With all due respect, I think I've heard more heartbreaking situations.
That's just the beginning. My grandpa passes away. Bless his soul. Sadness in the family. The funeral is arranged. Me and my father are transported in the hearse with a coffin on the way to the graveyard. And as soon as it drives from the chapel, Mr. Bonkers, our family cat, our poor family cat, crosses the road and in front of the hearse.
Don't tell me Mr. Bonkers also died?
No. In fact, that was the only happy moment in this story. The driver hits the brakes and Mr. Bonkers is saved. But the coffin with my grandpa slides with violence in the back and kills my father with a clean hit to the head. My grandpa killed my father. Can you imagine the headlines in the newspapers?
Well, we can't really say it was your grandfather who killed your father.
That's true. We can't say it to others. It's a family tragedy. It should stay in the privacy of our family. We've always been a family with good relations. There was no indications that my grandpa would murder my father.
I don't think we can say he murdered your father.
He did. And to take no risks, on the day of my father's funeral, I locked Mr. Bonkers away and put on my bicycle helmet, just in case my father would come sliding from the back to kill me, like his father had done with him. The trip went well. At the graveyard, I was one of the people who carries the coffin to the final resting place. It was July, hot afternoon. My hands were a little bit sweaty. The coffin slips from my hand and lands on my foot. My father broke my foot. Imagine the headlines.
Esteban, your story is strange, but I'm not sure if it's the most heartbreaking.
It's not heartbreaking. My grandfather dies, kills my father, who then breaks my foot. We have suffering, we have death, we have the fracture of my metatarsal bone, which takes up to 6 months to heal, and that's not all. I go to the hospital to get my foot on a cast. And at some point, there's this lady who waves at me from a distance. I wave back, only to realize she's waving at the gentleman sitting behind me. I found myself a total fool in public.
It hadn't happened yet in your story.
No, and it's not common that I put myself in those situations. So in conclusion, we have death of my grandpa, death of my father, broken foot, and being a fool at the hospital. To try to minimize the shame of the moment, I decide to continue to wave in the direction of the lady as if to say, no, I'm actually waving at someone behind you, lady. In this case, some young doctor who was standing there. So anyway, this happened. On my way home, I'm a bit moody, saddened, searching for a bit of comfort. So I send an SMS to my wife simply saying, I love you with all my heart. As it happens, the last person I texted was the funeral director, and the SMS goes to him by mistake. Before I rectify my mistake, the funeral director replies, I also have feelings for you. Meet me at the mortuary by the end of the day. I thought to myself, better not reply now and make things worse. When I get home, my foot is very, very itchy inside of the cast. I tried everything. First, I tried some talc powder. Then I tried to scratch with a wooden spoon from the kitchen. It was a bad idea. The sweat and the powder created a white paste that accumulated in the wooden spoon. I ended up taking a nap. In the meantime, my wife arrives and wakes me up by saying, honey, I tried this bechamel sauce you had in the wooden spoon and it was a bit bitter. And I tell her, cariño, that was not bechamel sauce. It was sweat and powder. She panicked and said, what if I'm allergic? She picked up my phone to call the emergency line. But suddenly her face changes and she asks, Esteban, are you in love with the funeral director? And I tell her, no, cariño, it was a mistake. Anyway, we arrive to the emergency room and the doctor who receives us is the one that I have been waving earlier to avoid being a fool. And he says, I noticed that you were waving at me generously earlier. And I want you to know that I'm single, but I'm not looking for anything serious. My wife snaps. So you're in love with the funeral director and this doctor, Esteban. Lord, take me away from this betrayal.
No, don't tell me she died also.
No, she got her stomach pumped and the Lord didn't take her, which in a way is also heartbreaking because it was a special request that she had for our Lord Jesus Christ.